Thank you very much. I want to thank the organisers to give us the opportunity to take part in this debate as young researchers. I'm here on behalf of EURODOC, the European Council of Doctoral Candidates and Junior Researchers, and actually it's an international federation, a European federation of 34 national organisations in 33 countries, with observers in other 3 more countries. So we are quite a broad organisation. And actually our mission is to represent and consolidate the community of doctoral candidates and junior researchers in Europe in the pursuit of a decent professional life. Well, to do this, I want to, at this moment, to comment on a few things related to young researchers as a specific part of the bulk of researchers in Europe right now. And actually, an attractive research career starts with recognition. That's a key point. And as stated in the Charter and Code, actually, all researchers should be recognized as professionals from the very beginning of their career. At this moment, in some of the countries in Europe, early stage researchers, people doing PhDs, are still considered students. They are not considered professionals. And I wonder, when there is a young graduate who is considering to start a research career, if they think, okay, I want to do research because actually I'm really passionate and curious about all the new things that can be discovered, and I really want to be part of that. Then if they try to think about a place where they want to do that research, I think that they will think, okay, in these countries, I'm going to be a student. My contributions are not going to be taken into account as a productivity. On the other hand, in these other countries, actually, I'm going to be considered a worker. My production is going to be taken into account. I think that's a big difference, and that makes also a big difference in making the research career attractive for the young people, for the graduates. Another important point, and in this case is related to mobility, is that actually in the early stages of the research career, the mobility is usually quite high. And that's a good thing. I mean, me, myself, I've been quite mobile. In my short career, I've been already living in 3 different countries, in 4 different cities. And I'm a postdoctoral researcher in Manchester right now, but, well, I'm Spanish, as you can tell by my name. And I like it. I've enjoyed a lot. I've learned a lot. It's been great. But, as Vanessa said before, most of these mobility opportunities are just short-term contracts or fellowships, or even, for some countries, just scholarships to do the PhD. And mobility is good if it is not masking instability. And that's a high risk in the early stage careers. And also, I just read a little bit through the conclusions of the public consultation, and I see that actually one of the things that respondents said that makes the research career relatively unattractive is just the lack of a career prospect. If we are just having short-term contracts and there is no possibility of having a little bit longer-term contract, more permanent, that's going to keep us just back, not wanting to really go and engage in a research career. And just to finish, the early stage careers for the young researchers, this is just the moment to get all the skills we need to be able to pursue a career also outside academia. It's going to be easier to get those skills right now at the very beginning rather than just later on when we don't have other possibilities and we have to kind of recycle quickly in a way that maybe is not the best one. So we have to take advantage of that. We need to give the early stage researchers those skills to promote not only the academia-based research career, but also from the very beginning promote that other non-academic or non-academia research pathways are also there. But for that, it's also really important. I completely agree with what you said, Vanessa.
Thank you.
It's really important to involve the other actors, the industry and so on. One example from Spain that is really clear is just, in Spain we have a program called Torres Quevedo that is to encourage industry to hire PhDs. And it was working pretty well at the beginning. The industry didn't know that it existed, and there were like many positions who weren't filled. But then it started growing, and it was a really good thing. But right now, I just got, actually the other day, a friend of mine who had one of these positions said, guys, do you know any job position that I can apply for? Because with all the recession, these industries are saying, okay, we got you because we had this possibility of this program, we got the money from the government and stuff, but now we don't have money, so bye-bye. Is that possible? Is that good? I don't think so. We need to think really well from the very beginning of the research career what we are going to do. We need a clear structure. That's another problem. There is not a clear structure of the research career. And I think that's a really important point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marisa Alonso. I think this question of mobility with enterprise, mobility with market-facing actors, market-facing companies is a critical one. And I know of that Spanish initiative. I also know of many companies looking for talent that they cannot find. So there's this paradox where many people are being produced, many companies are actually looking for talent that they seek, and they cannot find it. So there seems to be a deficit in information of some nature. And I do know that your access is going some way in improving that sort of information transfer. But first of all, questions to the audience for Marisa Alonso's presentation. I've got a quick one for you. In relation to comparisons between Europe, the US, other major areas, is it really any worse here?
Well, I think two key points are the lack of flexibility. In Europe is quite difficult. We have some problems, like trying to hire young researchers. It's not flexible, let's say it like that. And also it's much more difficult to get independence. In the US, there is more flexibility, and also there is a possibility of getting that independence through the tenure track, for example. And that's something that we don't really have in here. That's the reason why I said that we need a clear structure of the research career that at this moment we don't have.
Yes, okay. Yes, did I see a question? Yes, at the back. Would you mind stating your name and affiliation, please?
Yes, hello, Giorgio Clarotti from the European Commission. I'm Italian and I graduated in Belgium 25 years ago, and when I wanted to do a PhD, the Belgians said, oh, but you're Italian, and the Italian said, oh, you have a Belgian degree. So I think we've already gone a long way from that. For information, I benefited from the Marie Curie grants, one of these first, to turn all my handicaps into advantages. Yet, you mentioned that Europeans don't get independence. I was offered, rather young, opportunities to be head of lab in my home country, in Italy, because I had a good training. I decided to, in fact, join the Commission where I'm working now. But one thing I see is, I was speaking with someone from Latvia who was saying, I would love to get young German researchers, top trained, to come and work here because my own Latvian researchers, they want to go to Germany. So one thing which has appeared, I've been working with the ERANETs and with joint programming, is if we can increase a little bit the level of salaries and the level of infrastructure and skills that there are in countries which are seen as less interesting, personally, if I were to be, again, a young researcher, I fully agree independence is key, because now in my country, in Italy, you don't get to be head of lab if you're not below 70, maybe. Whilst you really have opportunities with structural funds, with new research labs opening in other countries, and if the European research area becomes a reality, then it can become a track for some younger, let's say, German or French researchers, which are barred by older people, to go and work in these countries.
It sounds a little bit like a plea for dispersion as opposed to concentration and excellence, but perhaps we could leave that argument for the end of the session. Stefan, did you want to come in, or any of the other panellists?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate time now to also report on the data from the questionnaire, from the consultation, because after all we are here to look at the results of that and think of how to move ahead. Now, one thing that very clearly came out of the responses that we received was, I think, what Marisa was showing through her individual case study, what we also heard from Vanessa earlier, and that is a research career actually turns out to be rather unattractive when you compare it to other sorts of professions that you can have where similar sort of qualifications are required. Now, more than 80%, more than 80 believe that career prospects and working conditions of public sector researchers are less attractive than of other professionals with similar qualifications. I mean, it's a huge number. On the other side, also 52% believe that the career prospects are less attractive in private than in the public sector. A whole range of elements brought forward to explain this low level of attractiveness, and just to take a few of them. So 85% believe that there is a lack of career prospects as such, there is a lack of development opportunities as such. 75% attributed to the fact that universities, research institutions are underfunded. They also attributed 75% about that the number of positions in academia, as we have heard as well, are limited, that the wages are relatively low. Also, a majority point to insufficient possibilities for participation in decision-making. Think, for instance, about the discussion of being independent in your research. Also, more than half of the respondents felt that the equipment, the infrastructure, was not up to the level for performing top-level research for which they had an ambition. The list goes on. More than 50% identify as an obstacle the fact that it is rather cumbersome in Europe to settle in a host country, and particularly when you move every other year, that there is a lack of information on social security and pension rights, and I can go on. And it also struck me that in the position papers, the Young Academy of Sweden, the universities from the Netherlands, the Swiss National Science Fund, and more, actually did report very extensively on that. And I think keywords that I retain from that is the need for predictability, transparency, and security in the research career. So a huge amount of feedback on that, I think very clearly underlining what we have heard both from Vanessa and Marisa on this.
Good. Good. Thank you, Stefan. I think we should draw a line under this until the final question and answer session. And now could I call upon Karen Case, who's Head of Communications for the Archimedes Foundation in Estonia.